So I wanted to start by saying that, I mean, obviously education is hugely important to you. It's not the first documentary you've made kind of about education, which you have in common with Malala. When did you first come across her story?
Well, these producers, Walter Parks and Laurie McDonald, are famous Hollywood producers. They ran DreamWorks for 9 years. And they had gotten the rights to the book for Malala's life rights to make a movie. And they sat down with Malala and her father to say hello and to introduce themselves, and then they realized who would play this girl? She's so amazing. So on their flight back to LA, they met Malala in Birmingham. On their flight back to LA, they were like, we have to make a documentary, so they called me up. They knew that I was passionate about education, but interestingly enough, yes, this movie's about education, but it's about something more. It's about this incredible father, this inspiring man, and this courageous daughter. And that it has this sort of universal, wonderful appeal to it. It's not sort of like this, you know, serious movie about education. It's actually rather fun and inspiring and really engaging.
Well, and did you always set out to kind of make it that the story not just of Malala, but about her father and her relationship with that, or did that kind of evolve as you were kind of getting to know them and doing interviews? And
early on, I thought, wow, I'm a father. I have 2 daughters, and I really wanted to know what was the nature of this relationship. This Pakistani man who saw his daughter to be incredible, and this girl who believed it, and her courage. And I also didn't want it just to make this heroic story. I wanted to really know what it was like to be at their kitchen table, because as it turns out, their kitchen table's a lot like mine. They arm wrestle, they tease each other. I wanted a way for the audience to really get to know them. You know, sometimes I think we think what happens on that part of the world is so scary, and people are so different, so mysterious, that I can't possibly understand that part of the world. And what I really wanted to do is make people feel like their family is just like mine, which they are.
Well, and you do a really good job, too, of showing, I mean, she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, but she's also a teenage girl who has her, like, celebrity crushes and is studying for exams and tests. And was that important to you to show that balance, too, and make her real as well, not just kind of the place, but the person?
Well, it's important to me because it's true. I mean, she, on one hand, talks to world leaders and, you know, sits down with Obama and says, you know, what about the drone strikes? Which, you know, a lot of American leaders wouldn't have the courage to do, but this, at that point, 17-year-old girl goes and asks him the toughest question, I think, of his presidency. And then she goes home and worries about her physics test. And she's an ordinary girl. And I think that's important. I think sometimes we see our heroes as untouchable and perfect, and I could never be them. And what you learn is that she's an ordinary girl. And she's defined by doing extraordinary things because she just decided to do it. And that anyone who watches this movie can be inspired by that and say, you know what, I can stand up, I can use my voice, and my voice matters. And that's to me what is so inspiring, because I have 2 daughters, and I want them to feel like they can stand up and raise their voice as well.
So is that what you want people to take away from it? That one person can kind of make a difference?
Absolutely.
Is that the
I mean, it's interesting. You know, when you study filmmaking, because I've done some dramatic stuff as well. The sort of film theory is that, like, great characters are defined by their choices, and bad characters are defined by their choices. You know, when push comes to shove, do they do the good thing or do they do the bad thing?
Yeah.
And here was an ordinary father and an ordinary daughter who saw terrible things come into their beautiful town. They lived in paradise. And they made a very courageous, brave choice to speak out against these terrible people. And I think all of us have the choices to make when we see terrible things in our lives. And too often in our very comfortable world, we choose not to do that. And I think, to me, that's the heart of this movie, is you see from Malala the power of your voice. And when she speaks out, she becomes a strong, heroic person. And I think I certainly learned from that.
Absolutely. And I was kind of curious, because her story isn't unknown. It's been pretty well publicized. Was there anything that you discovered as you were working on the project that actually kind of surprised you or shocked you that you weren't aware of before?
Well, I think the danger is thinking you know the story. Like, so before I got involved in this, I heard about the girl who was shot on her school bus, and you're like, oh, that's awful. Why would this girl be shot on her school bus? And then you hear maybe that, you know, she's an activist, and you say, well, that's cool. But that's not really Malala. You know, Malala is this, yes, she's from a town 7,000 miles away from my home, but she has dreams like I have, like my daughter has. Her father was just an ordinary man, but he saw in her something special, and he believed in her. He truly believed that she was equal. And I think even in our Western society, even here in Canada, you know, we have to question ourselves as, you know, do we see our daughters, our sisters, our mothers as equal? Do we treat them with the same kind of respect? And I think that's an important message.
And I think that is actually probably the most surprising thing when you're watching it, that it's just 100%. It's not even a question for him from the second she's born, and he names her, and you have that kind of opening where Malala comes from. And actually, I found really interesting the device you used with the animation. How did that kind of come about as a way of telling part of the story?
You know, we spent a tremendous amount of money. We built a studio, an animation studio, in my little office because I felt the necessity to tell her story in a way in which we haven't seen from that part of the world. Usually the images we get from that part of the world are very scary, you know, scary men with beards doing evil things, and what we don't realize is that that part of the world is a beautiful, very beautiful, mostly peaceful, you know, very, very small percentage of that world, of the Muslim world and the global South is capturing so much of our news and the story. And so I thought, why not portray their world in a way in which they remembered it? And so we did these very sort of beautiful, hand-drawn, almost storybook animations that I think help capture her story.
And what does Malala think of the movie? Has she seen the full movie yet, or is she too busy studying? Well, she just finished her GCSEs, I think.
She just finished her GCSEs. We had a screening here in Toronto last night, and she was on Skype before the audience. And she says very nice things about the movie. I think she's very proud of it. I think for her, having the world know her story is part of her mission. That her dream, I think, is that everyone gets together to help her, because she believes that there are 66 million girls out of school, and she believes it's her mission to help every girl feel the same equality she's felt, and every girl has a chance to go to school, because school really is that thing that lifts people out of their problems. It was for me. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.